Hello everyone, well I'm back from my holidays and I thought I'd just do a little video for you in the workshop back in here. It's a bit cold so I'm wrapped up, not used to this cold weather. I've been in 30 degrees heat for 3 weeks, so it's a bit of a shock to the system. Anyway, what I'm going to do this morning, we've got the bottom end crankcase for the RGV. Now this is going off to Vapor, needs a Vapor blast, it's absolutely filthy. So we've still got the clutch attached, still got the kickstart, drive mechanism and all the gearbox inside. So it's all going to come out. It's a cartridge gearbox, as most of you might know. So it all slides out, but I've got to get everything out of it. All the cables off the oil pump, neutral light, the oil feed lines, and then all the bearings out of the case as well, ready to go to Vapor. So what I'll do is I'll start taking it apart and I'll be explaining what I do when I get onto it. As I've said before, I'm just at home, learn my own ways, taught myself for a few tips and things like that, and it might not be 100% correct by some of you who are proper engine gurus, but this is how I do things. I've only got hand tools apart from the odd impact driver, things like that. So hopefully this will be informative for you guys who are like me, who just want to get stuck in, learn a bit, work on your own bikes. So bear with me. Hopefully all goes to plan and it all goes nice and smooth. Right, so first thing we're going to do is take the clutch out. Pretty easy. All these are 6 bolts here. Hold the pressure plate on. 10 milli. So we'll whiz them out. So that's all the pressure plate retaining bolts out. There we go, pressure plate's off. And inside there's the clutch. So I'll try and lift these out. Oh yeah, it's pretty manky. It is pretty manky. Wow. Yeah. I'll get it all out as one if I can. Will it come? Maybe. Might have to do a few individuals. Oh, there we go. It's come now. All I can do is clean it up, clean them all separately. There's a little bit of rust. That's where the water got in, sludge. And it's stuck together. Yeah, it's stuck together. I'll clean them up and we'll see where we go, but might need new clutch. I've never actually taken one out of an RGV and it's come out as a block. Yeah, you can see how stuck together they are. Yeah, we'll see. I'll clean it and see what happens. It might work, you never know. Yeah, the bottom plate is stuck solid. I mean, it shouldn't come out as a retaining clip, but it's absolutely solid anyway. Need to get the tab washer. I'll turn it around, show you. There we go. There's a tab washer there that's bent over. So I'll knock that back, flatten it, and then we'll get the impact wrench on it and free this big centre nut. They usually come out quite easy with an impact driver. Right, just tap that down with a flat, nice and gentle. Try and use this washer again. You can turn them round, so use the other side of it. You purists out there would probably put a new one on, but I've never had any trouble turning them around. They usually do a few goes. There we go, that looks all right. Let's get the impact driver. Hopefully this goes in first go. Yeah, there we go. That pops off easy. Lovely. It's even brought the clutch up. That was easy. Lovely. So let's keep all that together. Let's put that inside. Keep all that together. Drop those back in so we know where they all are. Right. So that there's the gear selection shaft. That goes to your left hand side where you click the lever up and down with your left foot. That just slides out. Yeah, you can see quite milky. That was where all the water got into the oil and emulsified. But the shaft itself looks in really good condition. Bit rusty on the outside bit there. Or is it even? No, it's not even rust, it's just caked on oil. I'll clean that up. That looks fine. I think what we'll do now, oh, there's that collar. Should I take that? I'll leave that down for now. I think what we'll do actually is get all this oil pump paraphernalia out the way, because all these hoses and cables are a bit of a pest. So in there, got the oil pumps held on by literally just two posi drive screws. Now obviously it's never been apart, this bike. We'll release the oil pump cable. Just have to bend this little tab. Hopefully I can get underneath. Let's get another screwdriver. Try this one. Just bend this little tab up. That's it, it's coming now. That's it. And then the cable should pop out. Just bend it a bit more. That should be enough. Yes. There we go. So that's the oil pump cable, which joins to your, in the junction box under the tank with the throttle cables. And as you turn the throttle, it pulls the oil pump. So there's the oil pump cable. That's one thing out the way. Now that's the feed. The big pipe there is the feed from the oil tank, and these two small pipes go to the cylinders. They're the ones that feed the cylinders, and these two pipes are the ones that feed the crankcase. They go straight to the crankcase, so they lubricate the bottom end of the bike. Right, let's see if we can just see if those two posi drive screws will come straight out. I doubt it. Might have to just give them a little tap, the impact driver, but we'll see. Sorry, I keep saying posi drive, I mean jizz. Japanese, oh yes, industrial specification. Slightly different. That one came out easy. Let's try the other one. Oh yes, nice. That was good. Oh, greased. That's why it came out well. Yet more proof that it's never been off. This one's a smaller one. Just get the magnet on it. Let's get it out. There we go. Get a little magnetic dish, keep them safe. So this should he says. It should pop off. It is, obviously it's on a shaft from the other side which drives it, but if we just try and give it a little, we'll just give it a little tap. I mean a little tap as well, just to loosen it, just to shock it. I think that's moving already. Yeah, it is moving. So just give it a little tap. Moving. Yeah, I think it wants to come. Come on. Yes. There we are. So, I can feed these very hard hoses. Yeah, that's snapped. That's snapped already because it's that brittle. Ah, oh well. Put it in the parts required box. All these are so stiff, these hoses. I might just give them a soak in boiling water and just see if I can resurrect them, because they're a bit of a funny size. But it's only a bit of hose, so I'm sure we could get something. That's those two out. This one slide through. Yeah, there we go. That's good. That's out of the way. Stick that over there. Keep it all on the bench for now. So in there, let's just clear a bit of debris. Right, in there, there's a gasket, goes behind the pump, and a little plastic drive there. Now on the back of the pump, is that drive pinion, I suppose you'd call it. Drive pinion, or yeah, I suppose that's what you call it. And that slots into that plastic drive there, which in turn obviously spins the oil pump. So let's give that a bit of a white there, see what we got. Yeah. Ah. Right, okay, that's that out of the way. A couple of washers have fallen off on the back. So that collar that goes behind the clutch, that's come off from there. There's a big pressure washer, I suppose you'd call it, that goes behind it. That one goes down there, I think. Yeah, that's where the gear change shaft goes through. So I'll stick that on there so we know where it is. That's that one. So I think we'll take this collar off because it wants to fall off. Just put that with the clutch. A little drink. Right. A little bit clearer. What we can see what we're doing a bit more now. There's some old gasket which snapped. Obviously replacing all the gaskets as we go. So I think next thing, I'm going to take the neutral light switch off because that's the last sort of thing that's in the way. I mean, you can see why it's going to vapour blasting. It's absolutely caked in thick oil and dust that's soaked into the oil. So it's really manky. You can clean them. I have cleaned the bottom side a bit there, but it's stained. All this oil that sits on it for years on end, it stains the cases. And the only way to get them back looking good is vapor blasting. I've the guy who's doing the vapor blasting, he's got all the other parts that I've sent to him, including the top crankcase where the crank sits. So the crank sits in there, and he's got the top case, and he's done that already. I'll post a picture while I'm talking. And you'll see how beautiful it's come up. I mean, it's better than new. It really is better than new. So it would be a travesty to just clean up this bottom case by hand, because it'd get clean, but it's like I say, it'd all be stained. So we'll send it off for the sake of 20-30 quid. It's more than worth doing. Now, while we're on the subject of things that's worth doing, I mean, I'll give away a couple of my secrets. A lot of people restore bikes, and they do a good job, but they don't do certain things. So they'll clean up the cases by hand with degreaser. Maybe some of it's lack of knowledge. They don't want to go this deep into the crankcase, so they leave the crankcase, the top case, in place. If the crank itself is all right, they'll leave it all in place and clean it up by hand, which is fine if that's what you're happy with. But if I'm doing a full restoration for the sake of probably what, £150 worth of vapor blasting, and if you buy a full gasket set, even if you don't use the head gaskets, which I prefer to use genuine head gaskets, but on this one I'm going to try and use Athena ones. I'm going to have a word with Sean at the Tuning Works, because he sells those kits, and for the sake of buying a full gasket set, you get every gasket, so clutch case cover, oil pump, you name it, everything you take off that's got a gasket behind it, you get a gasket in that Athena kit. So for 60 quid, it's really, sorry, £60 for you continental viewers, but for the sake of £60, even if you don't use the head gaskets, it's much better than and more economical than buying genuine. And it's only paper gaskets. It's not going to do, it's not an issue to use pattern there. They're fine. You even get O-rings and things in there too, so they're a really good kit. Right, let's get this neutral switch off. Hopefully we have the same look that we did with the oil pump. Yes. Good news. There's one. It really does help, because some of you may not know this, but all Japanese bikes, I'm not sure from what date, but probably from year dot, have JIS, J-I-S, Japanese Industrial Specification screws. They look like Phillips screws, but they are slightly different. They have a square shoulder knot. I think Phillips have slight chamfer in the inside of the X. And if you use Phillips posi drive screwdrivers, you end up damaging the JIS screws. So always buy yourself, these are Teng, but always buy yourself a set of JIS screwdrivers, because they just fit properly. Okay, so yes, that's loose. That's coming out easily. Nice one. So the cable routes in that passageway there and comes straight out. Now inside here, apart from a bit of debris, there's an O-ring which has been doing its job. Get that out. Try this screwdriver. Yeah, there we go. So there's an O-ring which sits there, and then as you'll see there are contact points on the back of this neutral switch, and they correspond to all the gears and neutral. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know where it sits when it is in neutral, who knows, but there's a ball bearing there, there it is, and that is the thing that contacts these brass contact points and makes the connection. So it must sit somewhere, maybe there because there's a bigger gap, I don't know. It must sit somewhere where it's not, when it's not in gear. It's got to be between one of those two, probably there, because that's shiny and it's in between one end of the revolution. So I would say that's neutral because it's got a little indent where it's shiny, and most of the time bike sits in neutral, doesn't it, when it's stood still. So that is probably where neutral is, and the ball bearing sits on that point and light illuminates your green neutral light. So I'll be very careful with this because we don't want to lose it. In fact, I'm telling you lies, it's not actually a ball bearing, it's a little, it looks like a ball bearing, but it's a long shaft with a spring. There we are. So the spring keeps the tension on the, I'll just give it a clean. The spring keeps the tension on the rounded ball, which pushes onto that plate and makes the contact. So without the spring it'd probably just fall away. I'm just going to get a little bag for this neutral light switch and its mechanism. I keep loads of anything that I buy parts wise, I just keep the bags because they come in so handy, especially with the little Ziploc end to them, and then we don't lose anything. I mean, I must admit it is quite daunting. I've done loads of bikes. This is probably about my 15th, 12th, 14th, 15th bike that I've restored fully, or partially at least. And I must admit, when I looked at the box of nuts and bolts and fasteners, it is quite daunting, even though I've done it loads of times. But as long as you've took loads of pictures, you've got a manual, you get away with it, and you keep things in bags. So if I didn't put that in a bag, just put it in a pot, I'd be going, where does that spring go? Obviously recognise the little push rod thing, but you go, where's that spring go? So essentially keep things that belong together in bags. Okay, so that's off. Let's give it a little wipe so it doesn't leak everywhere. Well, that'll get fully clean when it's vapor blasted. Right, now I think what we'll do is, it's getting lighter as well, which is good. I think what we'll do is we'll take the kickstart mechanism off. So literally, I mean, they almost fall off, these things. They're a bit of a pest when you're putting the clutch cover back on, but it's literally undo that 10mm nut and it releases these two springs and it just pulls out. It just pulls out on its own. So I'll just get a 10mm spanner. Okay, let's give it a knock. There we go, that's released. Interesting actually that, because a mate of mine who's a mechanic taught me years ago. I was always struggling just pushing tight nuts and screws, and he said, no, don't do that, just give it a knock and it releases it. And yeah, it's worked every time. So little things like that you do subconsciously, you forget you've learnt it. But I know I was one for always pulling on a screw or a seized nut and wasn't getting anywhere, and it's the shock of hitting it that releases it. Okay, let's put that in there. Right, so this spring releases now. It should. There we go, it's popped off. So there's your little plate that's held in, and when you do your kickstart, that pinion comes round, spins, and then that's the stop. So that bashes against there, and that's the stop. Okay, keep that over there. So now you can see that's the gear change mechanism. So that's your selector shaft, that's your secondary shaft. So that's the one that goes to the clutch, and then on the other side to the sprocket, front sprocket. And that's your gear selector mechanism there. So that turns to select the gear. Now this whole plate, I mean, they're an incredible, for a road bike of its era, from a 1980s road bike, this moved the game on, because most crankcases before this era, the gearbox, you had to split the case down the centre that way. But this, I don't know what other manufacturers did, but I do know they changed the way they did things, and it came from Grand Prix, because they're always taking gearboxes out, they were changing ratios inside the gearbox, so they had to have easy access. So literally all you do is drain the gearbox oil. They'll have dry clutches as well, which helps. So they just whip the clutch off like I've done. They wouldn't have a kickstart mechanism, so that wouldn't be there. Literally, you can see that plate, that silver plate, that's the thing that holds the whole gearbox together, and it's all mounted to that plate. So you can just undo these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nuts, and the whole thing just pulls out as one. It's an incredible adventure. And then obviously as well, you would have had to split the crankcase vertically to get to your crank as well, but you can actually, well, as you can see, I've had the crank out without even going near the gearbox. All you have to do is take the side case, drain the gearbox oil, take the side case off. So it was a real sea change, this style of crankcase and cassette gearbox. Even for like club racers, I've known people who've blown the motor, had to put a new crank in or spare crank in, and they've done it overnight. So you're at a 2-day meeting, your championship's at stake, or you're in the running for the championship, and you've got to put a crank in. You don't even need to touch the bottom end. You just take the cylinders off and the top crankcase, and away you go, you can get your crank out. So yeah, it's a big job obviously at the track, but it is doable. I've seen it done. Okay, let me just have a little look around here. Oh yeah, what we're going to do is take that circlip off, because that will stop the gearbox coming out. I'll just get the circlip pliers. Nice bit of kit. Got these from Laser, they are, but essential really for doing these circlips. So easy with one of these tools. You just do that and it's easy, rather than messing about screwdrivers and bending them. They're really handy. Right, so that's free. That shaft, drive shaft, which, let's just get the brush, just give that a little clean up. That is in really good condition, because these edges do wear and start to round, but not on this one. Another indication that the mileage is genuine. The bike's not done any real hard miles. Well within its capabilities on a road bike. Okay, so we'll turn it back round. I'm going to undo these 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that should all come out. Actually, I'll just take that off. Stopping it. Just tap it out. Yeah, that's come out. I was being too tidy for my own good there. Okay. There we go. That's coming. There we go. Here comes your gearbox. Right. There we are. Ooh. Well, we'll come back to the case. So, all fine, as in, no, don't think there's any wear. The mileage is too low on the engine. But, as you can see, there's a bit of rust going on. I don't think it'll cause any issues, but there we go. So, the top, so because the crankcase was full of water mixed with oil, the water has caused rust, which I thought it might. That's an oil feed pipe, so that just, there's a screw there, you undo that screw, and there's that little retaining plate, and it holds the oil pipe. So basically that, the pressure of the oil in the gearbox, there's holes on the bottom side of that there, and that sprays oil over all the gearbox and the engine's running. But let's get back to, yeah, so if I spin it round, you can see there's rust, but the rust, if I get it to a certain point, very little rust there now, and then I turn it, obviously that part of the gearbox, because they've all been facing down, that's been sat in the water, which has rusted the dogs. Now, do we, I think with a little TLC, get a wire wheel on all these, they should be okay. They're not the best. They're a bit, they are a little bit corroded from rust. In fact, any more bike engine gurus out there, I will put some messages on Facebook, but I'll take advice, because I've never seen this before. Bearing in mind, the bike's not going to get lots of use. It's not going to be a race bike. It's just a restoration. It's basically going to sit in a garage most of its life. And also bearing in mind how expensive and rare RGV gearboxes are, unless I can get a cheap bottom end. Will that clean up? Should I just get them cleaned up? To be continued, I would say. I will readdress that on another video later. But the point of this exercise today is to strip the case to get it off for vapor blasting. So there we go. So there's the gearbox. It's manky, as you can see. It is manky. You can see all the emulsified oil that's been sat. The gear change mechanism was all right. Yeah, I mean, it's all working. There's some sludge in there. Yeah. Anyway, let's put that to one side, and we'll readdress that at a later date. Okay. Well, yet more evidence of the emulsification and water ingress. So we've just basically got, looks like caramel ice cream melted, but it won't taste like it. It's horrible, horrible stuff. I'll give that a little wipe out, because I'm not sending that to Ian, my vapor man, like that. He won't thank me for that. I'll give that a clean out. So we're literally now, I'll be leaving the dowels in that locate the top engine case. You can vapor blast those as well, because you distort them when you try and get them out. That can come out. That holds the end crank bearing in place and stops sideways flow. There's another one goes in there which is on the crankshaft, attaches to the crankshaft, sorry, just like this one. It's only raised up 0.5 millimetre, but it's just enough to stop the crank floating sideways, so keep that safe. So that's out. We'll leave those studs in. You can vapor blast those, that doesn't matter. We'll leave the dowels in, you can vapor blast those. We'll leave the engine breather in. That'll clean up as well, that'll look nice. I mean, this is the bit that's on show. And all round the neutral light, oil pump, sprocket, that'll all be lovely and clean. I'm going to take, so there's 3 or 4 bits left to take off. So gear selector, oil seal, sprocket, shaft, oil seal, retaining plate, drive shaft retaining plate, that can come out. Engine, rubber mounting shaft with its rubber, this to stop vibration or help to stop vibration, that's coming out. And then take these dowels out now. They're just locating dowels for the gearbox. That one, is that one coming out? Just get some pliers. Yes, moving. I'll just give that a pull. A bit more so it's a little bit seized in. That's it, that's out. A little bit of corrosion, that's why it didn't come out easy. Right, these studs that hold the gearbox, they can stay in. He's probably not going to vapor blast inside anyway, which is a good thing, because that bearing which holds the primary, I can't remember what you call them, there's primary and secondary gear shafts, so that holds the end of the primary to stop it floating up and down. But that bearing, you need a special tool to get that bearing out. I've had crankcases vapored before, and all he does is he just covers that up with gaffer tape, that particular bearing. This big one's got to come out, and the oil pump drive, which is only plastic, that has to come out as well. So let's turn it round. I think it just pushes out, if I remember rightly. I think it does. Yeah, I'm not, might have to refer to the manual for that one. It's a while since I've done one of these, so I have a feeling it just pushes out. But rather than look an idiot on camera and break something, I'll check that out before I do it. So I'm going to take that seal out. I'm going to start with the drive shaft retaining plate. Now these ones may not come off easily. So let's get the case steady. This might be an impact driver job, but we'll have a go. I might get a bigger screwdriver actually. Bring the big boy out. Oh no, they need a little tap. The impact driver. Yeah. Guys, for £10–12, essential bit of kit for your workshop. They always come with the bits are quite big. They could do with a smaller hex bit, but I suppose anything smaller than will accept these usually isn't seized, but it is. I'm telling you, it is. I always have the smaller ones seized, but anyway, we'll just check that's going the wrong way. Turn it the other way. Still going the wrong way. That's it. Yeah, I don't know why it's going the wrong way. Anyway, let's just give these a little knock. That's gone. That's gone. That's gone. Right. It's going to need a little tap. There's a gasket underneath it. There we go. There we go. Yeah, there's the gasket. That was what's holding it down. Ah. Huh. Interesting. So there's our let's stand that up. There's our covering plate, which retains the O-ring. I mean, it makes no sense not to replace it. It wasn't leaking, but while it's off, I'll get that vapor blasted because it's on show. You can still see that, and we'll replace that O-ring. Just give it a bit of a clean. Yeah, we'll replace that O-ring. That does just pop out. Need to push it with a socket, so we'll do that. And that leaves us, this is interesting, that leaves us with I'll hold it that way there. That leaves us with the gasket, which goes behind that cover, and let's just give it a wipe. That's that big bearing that holds the drive shaft in place. The bearing itself, there's a little bit of noise. Yeah, it needs replace. I mean, it's coming out anyway for vapor blasting, so that gets replaced as a matter of course. I think it's a standard size from memory, because all these bearings from Suzuki are hellishly expensive. So it's not too bad. I mean, it's a whopping size bearing, as you can see. It's a whopping size bearing, that. So we're going to get that out in a minute. I haven't got a bench press for getting bearings out, so I am old school and use rods and bars, or actually, because we are scrapping that bearing anyway, I might just tap it out. Yeah, so if I heat around, I'll get this gasket off. If I heat around, the aluminium should expand enough, more than the steel bearing, and it should tap out quite easily. That I seem to remember the last one I did, it came out fairly easily. Okay, so the oil pump plastic drive literally did, I just had a bit of a practice off camera and it literally just pushed out. So there's a collar, as you can see, and I literally just got a 14mm socket inside the collar and tapped it and it fell out. So I do remember now. So that collar, the plastic wheel with that collar on pushes from the gearbox side, and the collar from the exterior side locks it in place, just slides over like that. So that's easy. The engine, rubber engine mounts, there you go, there you can see it's like a soft rubber corrugated thing that one either side pushes into the crankcase, and just a little shaft that goes in the middle to stop them moving side to side. So I just lubed it with a bit of WD-40 and they just pushed out. You just waggle them, get a screwdriver under it if it sticks, but that I just waggled it and it came out. So that's those two things easily sorted. Last thing is, well, two things to go. We've got the oil seal, which literally, because I'm replacing it, you just pop it out with a screwdriver, and that huge bearing that holds the sprocket drive shaft, I've heated up around and I've already started tapping it out to see if it moves, because I didn't want to show you on video me struggling. So I've just literally warmed up the case with a hot heat gun, paint stripping heat gun. I've got a big lump hammer and I have an old shaft, socket set shaft. So I'll just finish off that. I don't even know if you can see in there, but you literally just tap it. Let's just stand it up. You probably can't see, but I'll just tap it out. The hardest bit is holding the case so it doesn't fall over. It's nearly there, I can feel it. There we go, and she's out. It's a huge bearing. It really is. That is a huge bearing for a little 250. But yeah, I don't know if you can hear it. There's a little bit of noise. That'll be the water ingress, but more worrying is what the water's done to this seal on the outside. How strangely, there are no sizes on this bearing. So we'll have to look that up, get one ordered. Hopefully it doesn't have to be genuine Suzuki, which, as I say, cost a fortune. So really, apart from that oil seal, which I'll just pop out off camera, that's it. That's your RGV. Super dirty, extremely sludgy bottom crankcase. As I say, that bearing inside we leave in place. You need a puller that pulls it from behind. Excuse me. And you have to heat the case, but as he's not going to be blasting inside there, he just covers it up with gaffer tape. He'll do a bit in these recesses, but generally it gets left alone inside there. So all I've got to do, get the oil seal out for the gear change shaft. I'll clean up this gasket surface, get that off with the Stanley blade, and I'll give it a bit of a clean for him, because I wouldn't dare send that sludge away to the lad. That's not fair. Plus it'll get all over the inside of my van. So that's it. That's one bottom crankcase. So next time you see that, it'll look like brand new. Have a good weekend, guys. I'll see you in the next episode.